The Loneliest Creatures in the World by toucheslikethesun, Part 3. Reminder to check the trigger warnings in the description because this part's kind of heavy.
See, the thing about being tiny is that it will be hard for people to see Chuuya. Like right now, I need a microscope just to be able to find you. Huh? Chuuya seems genuinely confused, brows furrowed tightly with one raised. But you're looking at me right now, and what's a microscope? And stop calling me tiny. Dazai's eyes are now everywhere, pretending not to see him. Chuuya's reaction to being called tiny seems visceral, the way he used to bristle and make angry growling noises and screams whenever Dazai called him Chibi, even before he could talk, which is frankly hilarious to Dazai, that the Chibi knows nothing about the world but still has such a complex about being small. That makes no sense, you bastard! Chuuya's new habit seems to be calling Dazai that word all the time. Is that a fairy talking? Chuuya hits him on the chest, which tears a small oomph out of Dazai. Chuuya is getting stronger, clearly, though he's still mostly skin and bones even after a month. Don't be an asshole! That's another word he keeps using. It seems that all the curse words are what appeal to Chibi's angry slug brain because once he learns them, he doesn't stop using them. He reaches for Dazai's face to grab it, but Dazai pretends to absently turn away and to miss Chuuya's hands, blinking around. He can feel Chuuya's paws behind him, staring at his back, before the angry footsteps rush up and whirl him around by the shoulder and take his face, wrenching it towards his own. Look at me! Oi, Dazai, look at me! When Chuuya is angry, his face goes pink across the cheeks and nose, and his blue eyes blaze with fire. It fascinates Dazai, with such a pure and open display of emotion, of humanity. It doesn't always, with other people, but when it comes to Chuuya, there's just something about him, when he feels something, the way he expresses himself without ever holding back. Sure, Dazai thinks he could filter some of that, tailored to the way the world works so people don't try and take advantage or use it for their own agendas, to manipulate him. And Chuuya's still so naive and trusting and ignorant. But still it's fascinating. Fascinating enough to keep him going anyhow. And so... Whoa, that was a strong gust of wind that just turned me around. And I swear, I think there's a very tiny fairy in my ear talking to me, but I just can't see him. Dazai turns his head around this way and that against Chuuya's grip, trying to force Dazai to look at him. Dazai! Chuuya screams. Oof! Dazai grimaces and jerks back, pressing a finger to his ear at how loud and in his face that was, then feigns lighting up. Ah, there you are, Chuuya! I've been looking all around for you, but you're so small it's easy to miss. Chuuya growls, his hands tightening around his jaw. Then, as he does sometimes whenever Dazai teases him too much, he floats up into the corner of the ceiling to sulk, ignoring Dazai. That's how it is sometimes. Dazai teasing and annoying him until Chuuya seems ready to tear his hair out. And actually he tries once, but then stops at the yelp of pain Dazai gives out, staring at him wide-eyed, as if he didn't actually mean to hurt him. In some visceral response to all that he's feeling, Dazai feels like a kid, feels giddy and excited and intrigued, like he is actually having fun for once in his life. He lived in a big mansion once, when he was a child, until he was 7 to be precise, before he took all his things and ran away from home. He couldn't remember ever having fun. He remembers sitting rod straight and perfect and well-mannered at the dinner table when his father was home. He remembers his mother, who would hardly ever even look at him, close the door at his face when he stood in the doorframe for her. He remembers wanting to make someone laugh, to have them want to be around him, so he'd do silly things hoping to make the servants laugh. And they did laugh, but Dazai never really had fun, only remembering doing all those things out of some strange desperation to be seen and wanted. When he thinks of that younger version of himself and his desperation now, he can't understand it. He has grown so numb and dead at this point he can't fathom why he ever cared that much. Out in the world he learned a lot of people are like that, cold and apathetic like his mother, rageful and cruel like his father. There are normal people, of course, but normal people live their lives in blissful ignorance, in a world that is as different from Dazai's as day and night. Normal people are people Dazai doesn't understand or relate to. He knows how they work cognitively, intellectually, but he does not understand what it's like to experience and feel the way they do. Normal people are mostly indifferent to him, and he to them. His solitude keeps him safe. Being alone has always kept him safe. When he was 5, he learned that he needed to kill his feelings in order to not suffer, because that was why things hurt in the end, didn't it? His father's rage and fists and screaming, being invisible and unwanted and lonely. Feeling too much was why he got scared, why everything scared him. He remembers the anxious feelings that used to keep him up at night, when his mind ran 1,000,000 miles a second about all things, about everything in the world that was wrong, about his mother and father, a way he felt cut off from everyone, the way he did not feel human, the way he could not connect to anyone or anything. He remembers that he could not understand the purpose of being alive and here in this world. He remembers how his mind would turn over and over, searching, trying to rationalize and logic his way to wanting to live. He remembers that he has always wanted to die. Having been on the street since he was 7, Dazai can smell a creep from a mile away at this point. He and Chuuya are sitting on the park bench again. There are people around, but not too many. It would be noticeable that a strange, greasy man had just come and sat beside 2 young boys. "Hey, what are you 2 doing sitting here all alone?" the guy asks, feigning concern. "Where are your parents?" Due to the undernutrition, Dazai supposes he and Chuuya look younger than they really are for people being asked about their parents. Or, well, it's not like he even knows how young Chuuya is. Clearly he's more on the other side of puberty, though, so he shouldn't be much younger than Dazai is. At most, he can only estimate he's a year or 2 younger. Nonetheless, it's clear the guy's just trying to get a feel for how vulnerable and easy prey they are. Dazai doesn't know if Chuuya is managing to read the situation, but when he glances at his face, he's surprised to find Chuuya glaring at the other man. Leaning against Dazai's shoulder, fingers curling around Dazai's black coat, meaning he has a better sense of danger than most people, which makes sense if Dazai really thinks about it. If nothing else, Dazai's bored enough to fuck around with the guy. He's likely been watching them for some time. "I don't know," Dazai mumbles, pretending to be timid. "I never knew mine, and neither does he." The guy coos sympathetically. "I'm sorry to hear that. You get hurt or something recently?" Dazai's bandages and dead eyes mostly make people stay away, but every now and then there are people who are stupid and annoying enough to ask about them. "I jumped into a ditch trying to kill myself, but it didn't work," he tells him, very solemnly. "No money for me to go to the hospital. I just stole these bandages to cover them up." "Oh!" The guy looks bewildered and thrown off, and tries to play it cool. "Hey, don't you talk?" He turns to look at Chuuya. Chuuya glares at him, pulling Dazai closer by grappling his arms around his waist and away from the man. "Fuck off," he snarls. Dazai tries to hold back a snicker. The guy's face twists with anger before he turns away to try and control it. He smiles pleasantly. "There's no need to be so rude." "Hey, mister," Dazai says. "You got something for us to eat?" Then he turns to Dazai, a kind look in his eyes, something almost excited that he quickly puts away. Nothing ever goes past Dazai, of course, and the guy's too slow. "Yeah, you hungry? I can make you something to eat back at my place. My car's right over there." "Oh, well, I was hoping you could buy us some of those crepes over there," Dazai says, pointing at the stall. He watches the guy squirm a little, seeing the small diversion from where he wants things to go. "Ah, those? I can make you something 100 times better. Come with me. What's your name?" "Shuji. This is Fumiko." "Well, Suji, let's get you something to eat." He reaches for Dazai. He's blatantly ignoring Chuuya as if he doesn't exist, which is likely why he doesn't see it coming. To be fair, though, for all his intellect and predictive abilities, neither does Dazai, which makes it all the more glorious. The first thing Dazai sees is a flash of red. The next he hears is a pained yelp. It takes him a second to fully take in what exactly he's seeing. Chuuya's jaw is clamped down on the hand that was reaching for Dazai. His teeth are sunken deep and hard into the flesh stubbornly, and the guy is now screaming, panicking, and trying to shake Chuuya off. "Fuck, get off, you little bastard! Get the fuck off!" Everyone is now turning to look at them. Dazai is holding in his laughter so he could put the final nail in the coffin. He quickly pulls at Chuuya, who lets go of the man's hand only at the cue, scrambling to his feet while gripping his hand and staring wild-eyed at Chuuya with rage and fear. "You stupid little shit!" Dazai turns Chuuya's face into his own shoulder, gripping the back of the redhead's tightly to make it look as if Chuuya's crying into his shoulder. "Why were you trying to touch my friend like that?" He makes himself sound terrified and on the verge of tears, screaming loudly so everyone can hear it. Why were you doing that? You made him feel scared and weird." "What? I didn't touch him." End scene. Now, when people turn to look at them, they see a beautiful red-haired boy crying into his friend's shoulder, and a pedophile who is panicking at all the glares of disgust and anger coming over people's faces. Mothers, fathers, men, and women, many of them coming to circle them. Dazai takes Chuuya's hand and slips away, waiting until they were away to start laughing, wiping at his watery eyes. His stomach hurts. Chuuya still glaring angrily in the direction of the guy. "You really are my dog, aren't you, Chuuya?" The arcade has always been one of Dazai's most frequented places ever since he discovered it. Whenever he's bored completely out of his mind, this is one of the places he comes to, trying to stall thinking. Maybe I'll kill myself after I try this new game. Maybe I'll kill myself after I beat the high score. He used to come aimlessly because there wasn't anything else, and he didn't know what to do with himself. Bringing Chuuya here feels different. He supposes there's a strange sense of purpose and meaning to it, to show things to him, and try to get his reaction. In the arcade, there are some games that get boring very quickly if he's playing with a computer, so, frankly, he's quite excited to bring Chuuya here so he can play with him. Chuuya even gets the hang of it pretty quickly. Of course, he isn't great at it or anything, but it's a whole lot more stimulating for sure to be playing with an actual person, who gets angry and upset and hilariously competitive whenever he loses, seeing his character fall to the ground. They play a whole lot of games together, collecting and combining their tokens together so they can get some sort of prize. Since Dazai doesn't actually care to get a single one of them, he lets Chuuya decide on that. When Chuuya decides on a small stuffed dog, he seems to have an obsession, Dazai almost laughs at him and asks, "Why did you get a stuffed toy version of yourself, Chuuya?" But he sort of forgets to do that when he sees Chuuya looking down at it in his hands with a pleased smirk on his mouth. "What else?" Dazai asks before he can help it. What else does Chuuya want? The feeling in his chest is strange, expanding, like his ribs are too small for his heart. It's an uncomfortable feeling, and he sounds weird and awkward asking the question, as if someone else is speaking in his voice. Chuuya looks up at him, then at the prizes. "You choose this time." "I don't want anything. I'm asking the Chibi." "I want you to have something too." There it is, that sincerity, kindness that softens the edges of the tiny slug's angry temperament. The question that comes to him is, where does it come from, in a boy who doesn't even think he existed a month ago? Is it just part of some people? Is it a remnant of something taught to him from memories he doesn't remember? Dazai takes some perishables to appease the Chibi, candy and snacks, as well as a pen, since nothing really appeals to him or serves him in any way. The lady at the prize counter gives Chuuya a free slinky, Dazai supposes because she finds him cute. It's late by the time they leave the arcade. They're walking back to the abandoned warehouse, and the route they take is fairly empty at this time, passing by a bar. The drunken laughter reaches Dazai some feet away. There are 8 men in total gathered outside the bar, and his instincts scream alarm and danger. Dazai's encountered enough drunken men looking for physically easy targets to blow off some steam on and have a power trip over to bother taking the risk. Dazai grabs Chuuya's wrist and pulls him close, planning to turn back and change route. He is intelligent and good at getting out of sticky situations,
But frankly, even he has a hard time trying to deal with a group of 8 unreasonable men in an unsafe sound state of mind. Not that it's impossible for him, and depending on how the situation goes, their lack of mental clarity can be in his favor. But he'd rather avoid dealing with it where he can, especially if Chuuya's with him. "Hey, you two, where are you going?" The chorus of footsteps follows after them, coming nearer. Dazai plans to fully ignore them and keep going, but a few of them rush forward until they're in front of them, blocking their way. Now they are essentially surrounded by the men in a half circle, and Dazai quickly pulls Chuuya behind him. The man in front of him takes a swig out of his bottle, grinning, leering at them. More specifically, "Who's that pretty little thing you got there? Hey, sweetheart, what's your name?" Another guy laughs. "The fuck? She looks 12, man." "I'm too drunk to care." The other goons all laugh. "I'll take anything at this point." "He's a boy," Dazai says, neutrally, hoping that'd be enough to kill their interest. "Huh?" one guy says, smirking. "Well, you look like you're desperate for money. How much for your little friend there?" They're really counting on the fact that Chuuya can't physically fight. If only they knew. Chuuya may not have full control over his power yet, besides the mindless and mundane ways he uses it to bring something to him he's too lazy or tired to get up for, or floating up when he's really happy or upset and angry with Dazai. But if they make him angry or scared enough, they'll regret it, based on the way Dazai's first meeting with Chuuya went. Dazai slowly lets go of Chuuya, making sure he's not touching him. Chuuya makes him stupid, unfortunate it seems. He reaches for him without thinking. The way they are all looking at Chuuya makes his skin crawl, like he's a piece of fresh meat and they are all hungry dogs. "I don't know. Why don't you ask him?" The two goons laugh, looking straight at Chuuya. "How much for a night?" "You want to die for it?" Chuuya hisses at them. He clearly doesn't understand what's going on, but he's getting smart. Smart enough to pretend he is. His response sends a wave of raucous laughter throughout the men, not taking him seriously. "Come on, you know you want the money." One goon's looking at Dazai again. He sounds like he's trying not to laugh. They're just messing with him. "Scrawny and banged up thing like you. We should just take him off your hands. We're giving you a chance here." Dazai's hand twitches at his sides. "Hey, by the way, what the fuck's up with all the bandages?" The fourth guy says. "You got into an accident or something, kid?" "So how about it?" Guy 2 asks. 500 won? 1,000? Dazai knows he's inverting a situation back on them. Using reverse psychology can go many different ways. The point is to make them feel uncertain about what they're doing, what they're intending. If they're stupid enough, they'll get scared and back off, feeling something isn't right. If they're stupider, they'll get angry and double down. Even stupider than that, they'll not take him seriously at all, or they'll get threatened and do something violent. By Dazai's understanding and prediction, they seem to be of the last kind. "You want him." Dazai's face goes dark, giving them the best maniacal grin he can and his wildest eyes, head cocked. "Come and get him." He hopes they die, slow and painful, though that is luxury, more than they deserve. Dazai taps on Chuuya's arm behind him in the Morse code he taught him. Ability. Chuuya's breath hitches slightly behind him, which is a bad sign. It seems he isn't confident enough in his control of the ability. It's a big risk, too, Dazai knows. If Chuuya uses too much of his power, especially in a public place like this, it will give the authorities a lead on him. Dazai knows without a doubt that they are already looking for him, and this close to the abandoned house means they will have to find a new place and keep rotating for some time. Even if Chuuya's combative skills using his ability are dubious, in any situation Dazai always has the power to make people feel uneasy and uncertain, just with his body language and expression. The guys look at each other, their smiles wiped off at the sudden twist of events. Now there is a kind of fear, dread, growing among the men. Guy 1 turns back to look at him, eyes wide. That dread grows deeper, his breath hitched, stumbling back. The rest of them seem to be feeling the same. "Your eyes, they are like the devil's," someone once said to him. "The effect of it on these men is clear." "Come on now," Dazai goads. "You all want a piece of him, don't you?" They all stare at him, glancing at each other. The dread builds and builds in the silence that persists. Dazai's gaze is unrelenting, his smirk hollow. Dazai saw it coming, really, the violence under the feeling threatened. But somehow he wasn't fast enough, and the only thing he can chalk it down to is that he has been somewhat weakened with half his mind stuck on the Chibi, since he has never had to look out for anyone but himself before. He can feel Chuuya behind him too vividly. He can feel his hands twitch with the urge to reach for him and keep him safe, make sure their hands never touch him. He dodges the first two attacks, manages to get them hitting each other instead, which causes a fight between the three men as he intended. The fourth comes in as a mediator, 4 of them distracted, but there are still 4 more to go. There's a blinding hot white pain exploding all over his skull, glass shattering loudly inside his head and ears. He must have blacked out for a few seconds, because the next time he becomes aware of anything past the agony, he's on the floor, hands hovering over the hot trickle of blood at his temple. The world is spinning wildly around him. He can't breathe for how much it hurts. In the spinning world all around on its axis, he sees Chuuya's terrified face, the men's hands grabbing at his arms and pulling him. Strange men, like the lab people. Strange men that want to hurt him. Chuuya's eyes are fixed on him, and he's screaming what looks to be his name. Dazai can't hear or focus. He's thrashing wildly against their hold, trying to get to him. Dazai can hear his own blood drip on the ground. "Run!" Dazai gasps, forced out through grinded teeth in anguish, as the 4 of them come looming over him. His head is pounding in his throat. For the first time in forever, pounding, not quite for himself, and making its existence known. "Use your ability, however, and just run, Chuuya." There's more pain, a hard strike across his face, then slamming into his gut. Twice, thrice, and another blow at his lower back. "Fucking freak!" There's a scream, high and loud, of horrible, horrible rage. That's the last thing he hears before everything is gone. When he comes to, they're in an alley. Chuuya is sitting beside him, his hands shaking on his shoulders, fluttering over to his face. "Osamu," he whisper trembles. He looks like he's been crying, eyes rimmed red, wide with fear and helplessness. Chuuya likely didn't even know what to do in a situation except hide them away. Dazai reaches for Chuuya's hands and takes them, trying to soothe the tremors by squeezing them weakly. He blames it on the head injury. There's a lot of noise out there, a crowd of people gathered together. It takes Dazai a minute to at least recall what happened through the hammering pain in his skull. There are a string of glass cuts on his face. From here, all he can infer is that a good part of the street has been leveled. Cracks are running across some length of it. The front of some buildings are damaged. Dazai shifts across, twisting his head painstakingly around the alley corner, trying his best to get a better look at the impact. He can see the craters, 8 of them to be exact, in the ground where the people have been sidelined so it can be investigated. Yellow tape being stretched out around the area. They will need to drag the corpses out. This is Chuuya's power. For a moment, he is overcome with wonder. For a moment, he wishes he'd been awake to see it. The beautiful storm of destruction that caused this. This is Chuuya's power. Likely, just the tip of the iceberg of it. However satisfactory it is to know those men are dead, this will be a problem. "We need to get out of here," Dazai grits out, trying to get up. The area is being investigated, and they can't be found. Chuuya takes his biceps to help him to his feet, which frankly is not much help due to how small and malnourished he is. They break through the back door with a pin, extremely difficult in the dark and through his headache, but Dazai has managed in worse states. The back door leads to a closed restaurant. They can stay here for the night, but they'll need to leave early at dawn. It's dark, except for the lights from the outside of their places and streetlights coming in through the laminated glass panels. As Chuuya is using a cloth he found to clean the blood off of him, soaked with water from the sink in the kitchen. Dazai tells him what he can about concussions, as briefly as he can instruct him, because right now all he wants to do is sleep and escape the pain. He lies down, carefully on the floor, his coat folded up under his head as a pillow. "Wake me every hour, 'kay?" Chuuya nods. "Okay." The fear has not left his eyes. It makes him look years younger. For some reason, it's the first time it really hits Dazai that Chuuya trusts him, wholly and absolutely. He trusts Dazai in a way no one else ever has. "You are all I have. I am all you have." Dazai is nearly drifting away when he feels hands on his shirt, the weight of a body shifting against and over him. Chuuya's head and hands are folded loosely on his chest, shoulders curled up sideways on top of him. Dazai wraps his arms around them and falls back asleep before he knows it.